Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really pleased to have with me once again Dr. Quinton Hennigh. He's here today to give us an update on Irving Resources and its very unique projects in Japan. Dr. Hennigh is a director and technical advisor to the company, and he leads the company's exploration efforts in Japan, along with some of Japan's top geological mines. Irving Resources trades in Toronto under the symbol IRV, and you can buy it in the States as I have under the symbol IRVRF. 54.8 million shares outstanding, fully diluted 59 million only. Management has a good chunk of that, about 15 or 16% on a fully diluted basis in Newmont. Newmont Mining owns 9.34%. The company is pretty well off cash-wise. Thank goodness for that. It's got around 11.6 million in Canadian money. This is a very exciting story that I've been following. I own the shares myself that I've purchased off the market. And really due to some unique circumstances, the prospects that Irving has look very exciting to me, and that's what I'd like to talk to Dr. Hennigh about once again. Thanks for joining me, Quinton.
Absolutely.
First of all, let me just ask you, how is Irving dealing with this Chinese virus that is causing so much suffering around the world? I know that your projects there are pretty much to the north in Hokkaido, located in a more remote area of Japan. But what can you tell us about, are you able to continue working there through this pandemic?
Yes, that's a very good question. It's a question for most junior mining companies these days, and I'm happy to say that, yes, we are continuing to work, and we're able to do it safely. Hokkaido, as many people know, was affected probably late February, early March, most pointedly, like the increase in cases was sharpest during that time frame. They've, by and large, got things under control. They have seen a bit of a resurgence in just the past week or so. As anybody that's watched the news around Japan knows, there is still a great deal of caution. Abe has declared state of emergency for the country, but the Japanese have different levels of state of emergency. Mm-hmm. Is basically, to enforce strict guidelines, like as far as social distancing and things like that go. The Japanese have a long experience with viruses, and so forth. If you look back even in the past 20 years, they've kind of ridden this rodeo several times. Mm-hmm. So they have pretty good systems in place to, and people effectively adhere to guidelines. So mm-hmm. It's a very effective solution. Mm-hmm. Now, we are operating in a little town called Oulu. There are no reported cases there as yet, nor nearby us in Mombetsu, which is the next largest community. So we are working safely. Our team is, monitoring their health every day. We've got the drillers, geologists, and helpers of various people. So they monitor their health, they monitor the situation in the local community, and we're basically currently working semi-autonomously, we'll call it, from the rest of the area. So, effectively we're socially isolated, let's call it. And we're also taking precautions as far as having food and supplies on site, drill supplies, stuff like that, so we don't run short. We have every intention to keep drilling, and we have all the things we need for drilling for the remainder of the year. We have lots of targets lined up, so our goal is to keep this going as long as we're able to and abide by whatever guidelines are set in place.
Yeah, good, excellent. Well, it's I know it's spotty in the industry. Some people are pretty much shut down, others are going 50%, and it sounds like Irving is able to pretty much carry on close to what you would have done anyway, maybe.
That's right.
Oh, well, we're very fortunate. Very fortunate on a number of counts as far as the shareholders of this company is concerned, from what I can see. You've been remarkably successful in hitting numerous high-grade veins at Oulu since you started drilling. There, I think last year it was, but for example, in November last year, the company announced that, and I quote from the press release, all 8 widely spaced diamond drill holes at Oulu Center encountered significant gold-silver mineralization, including notable vein intercepts in 7 of 8 holes. end of quote. And they were some very high numbers attached to that press release. However, many of these veins are fairly narrow. So at first glance, some investors might say, well, yeah, they're kind of high grade. What does that matter? Because they're narrow veins, it's going to cost too much to mine them. How would you respond to that? Because you have a unique situation there, and I want our listeners to understand that.
Certainly. Look, that's probably the most important aspect of our business model is how we're going to deal with these veins or treat these veins. In mining, when there's costs involved from exploration all the way through pouring a gold bar. Okay, and a lot of the costs that are involved in mining are around not just the actual physical mining part, but the processing of material. In fact, processing dominates the costs of production in many different mines. In the case of Irving, we are exploring for what are high silicon, basically quartz-rich veins that have a reasonably high precious metal content. And the goal is to mine and use that material for smelter flux. In smelters, they need silica to effectively melt the copper concentrates or lead concentrates or whatever base metal they're working with. And to help that melting process, you need a great deal of silica. Okay, so an average smelter in Japan might use anywhere from 100,000 up to 1 million tons of silica per year. Well, what better way to process your gold ore than to deliver it as smelter flux? We can basically have offtake with these smelters and deliver a material that is suited for smelter flux, but the gold and silver are recovered through the smelting process. So, for example, when you chuck a piece of these gold veins into a smelter furnace, the gold and silver, as the rocks melt and the copper concentrates melt, the gold and silver end up in the copper matte or the copper metal. Are recovered through electrolysis downstream, but the gold and silver are effectively 100% recovered in this process. It's a wonderful scenario, and the smelters pay. They pay not only for the gold and silver, but they pay for the silica itself. So you're getting value out of that. So people wonder, well, how on earth are you going to mine a narrow vein? Look, the Japanese have been doing this for many eons now. They mine narrow veins, or they have traditionally. There's one main mine in Japan still operating, Hishikari, and the veins there average about 0.5 to 1 meter in width. Most people don't know that. It's a very famous mine. It's very high grade, but the veins are narrow. They're not huge stonking things. Well, when they mine it, they bring it out. They actually upgrade the material through hand sorting at Hishikari. In our case, it's interesting because the host rock, the rock around the veins, is silica-rich or silica-flooded volcanic rock. So we actually, the veins themselves are encased in high silica rock. There's also low-grade, gold, silver values in the surrounding rock. So it's not like you're mining no-grade or waste. It's all basically material that could go towards smelter flux. So I really don't see too many issues here. I think given this model and the fact that we can mine and direct ship this material makes will make a very good economic case.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it, and you don't have to worry about capital costs for building a mill, all of the costs and time that's involved in getting permitting and all of that sort of thing to build a mill and those facilities. So it really is a very exciting story, I think, and of course we're looking for more and more information coming out. I believe this was recorded on the 20th. On Monday, and I believe, if I'm understanding, you may be expecting some news to be made public tomorrow. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, look, we'll have some more results. We've been drilling at Oulu Center since around mid-January. We've got, assays are slow. This coronavirus or Chinese virus has slowed things down, but we're still operating. The labs are still operating. We will get more results, trickle in through time, but we do have some results that we'll put out. I think people will be pleased to see that it confirms the current thesis at Oulu Center. And we've got several holes that we've just completed that look quite interesting as well. We'll talk about those in the news release. In the meantime, we have moved the drill. The snow has been fairly light this year, so we've been able to move the drill back up to Omui, which is where we drilled hole 10 last year. and had a large number of veins in that hole. We're going to drill a hole, or we're drilling a hole parallel to that about, I think it's around 80 to 100 meters east of hole 10, and this will be our second test of that critical area. We're going to see those veins extend, laterally out into the resistive feature that we see off to the east.
Quinton, a question just came to my mind I'd like to ask you about in light of the economic scenario globally now that's resulting from this Chinese virus. You've got many different smelters there in Japan. I don't know how many. They're dotted all over the country. But I'm wondering, might there be less of a demand for flux? And I ask that. I know that there are people that are saying they believe they're very bullish on some of these base metals now because of the infrastructure and all that sort of thing that's projected to take place. But do you have any thoughts about that?
The best I can tell you is, from the people I know at some of the major mining houses in Japan, I have not heard of any indication there's planned slowdowns or taking anything offline. I don't know how copper prices and other base metal prices will be affected by this current situation. These are metals that are vital. I'm not going to say, they're impervious to, to the effects of the market, economics. But I'll tell you, the likelihood that the smelter industry, goes the way of, say, the oil industry or something, I think is less so. And I would say that there will be demand, even if it does slow somewhat over the next year or two. We're probably looking at, taking the Oulu project as a whole forward within that time frame, and in terms of exploration and stuff. So I think I'm not too worried about how it affects us directly.
Well, that's certainly it makes a lot of sense. As I understand it, the demand for flux has been very, very robust there, and so they're willing to pay you for the flux itself. So it's all a good story. I just had to ask that question because it's certainly something that's on the minds of a lot of people right now in terms of the global economy. But again, on the other hand, there are those that are saying they believe that we may be entering an inflationary period where there's going to be a huge demand as governments try to engage in various projects to try to keep the economy going. So anyway, the really good news is that it seems as though you have a very low cost gold mining story here that should do very well from what all I can see, and it's certainly one of my top picks. Quinton, anything else you'd like to add?
I would say that just to reiterate, we have a full year's drill program laid out. We have lots of drill targets and so forth. We're making as good or better progress right now drilling in terms of speed as we did last year, so that's all good. I'd say the sticky wickets will be laboratory assays. I think they're just going to be somewhat slower. And the reason for that is what you're seeing is a consolidation of the streams of samples into certain labs, and other labs are going offline. So, there is the overall demand for assays has decreased, but you're seeing a lot of that business funneled through certain laboratories. So I think that they're going to be absolutely chocker with business. So, people have to be patient, but look, we'll report geology as we see it, and I'm not too worried about the system. It looks quite robust.
Right, and indeed, certainly all the reasons to be optimistic in terms of the gold price and the gold markets as well, from what I can see. Quinton, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us today, and all the best, and we'll try to keep up with Irving going forward.
Thank you very much, Jay.